Friends. Good evening. D.H. Lawrence, a famous writer, famous for his Lady Chatterley lover, the controversial one, famous for his Sons and Lovers, and for his Peacock novel, and the one another which I am going to tell you now about is Woman in Love. The name of this novel is Woman. So this novel starts with the sisters Ursula and Gudrun Brangwin chatting about marriage one morning at their father's house in Beldover. Gudrun has recently returned home from art school in London. The two later decide to drop by a local wedding where they first see Gerald Critch and Rupert Birkin, the two men with whom they will develop affairs that drive the action of the novel. Birkin is a school inspector with extremely unconventional attitudes about life, and Gerald is the heir to the local mining operation that is the central industry of Beldover. Birkin and Gerald hate each other passionately at the beginning of the novel, but after a chance encounter on the way to London, they begin to become friends. Rupert is haunted by his lingering attachment to Hermione Rodici, an aristocratic woman whom he loathes but finds difficult to abandon. Hermione wants to marry Birkin and have him dominate her completely. This situation complicates Birkin's growing fondness for Ursula, and Hermione and Ursula becomes enemies. During a weekend gathering at Hermione's estate, Bredalby, she becomes enraged and smashes a paperweight against the back of Birkin's head with the intention of killing him. He escapes and considered it the end of their relationship. Birkin decides to move into a mill house on Willie Water Lake, and Ursula begins visiting him there. The two slowly start to fall in love. One evening, the Critch family hosts their annual public party by the lake, and Brangwin sister attend. They meet Gerald and Birkin there, and romantic sparks fly. But this is interrupted by the tragic drowning death of Gerald's sister Diana Critch and a young doctor who attempts to rescue her. After the tragedy, Birkin falls ill again and Gerald visits him. He realizes that he loves Gerald and asks him to exchange a vow of lasting commitment between them. Gerald hesitates to do so, although he also loves Birkin. Gerald's father, Thomas Critch, falls ill and is near death. He and Gerald decide to hire Gudrun to tutor Gerald's youngest sister, Winifred, in art. Gudrun begins visiting their home, Shortland, nearly every day to teach Winifred. Mr. Critch builds an artistic studio for Gudrun to use, and she and Gerald grow closer. Meanwhile, Birkin is frustrated with Ursula's decision and leaves for a vacation in the south of France. Ursula hears nothing for some time, and one evening during a walk sees Birkin in front of this home. They talk and exchange promises of love. The next day, Birkin goes to Ursula's house intending to propose. He meets her father, Tom Brangwin, instead. and asks the man for his daughter's hand. Ursula is enraged and refuses him. Birkin stomps away and goes to see Geralt at Shortlands, where the two engage in a violently eroticized wrestling match. Meanwhile, after a few days, Ursula decides she is deeply in love with Birkin and must fight to transform his passion to match hers. Time passes, and one afternoon, Birkin surprises Ursula at her school, offering to take her on a car ride. She agrees, and he gives her a gift of 3 rings. This leads to an argument, and Ursula abandons him on the side of the road. Only moments later, she returns to make peace, and the two decide to go into the town to take tea. Their bond is solidified that night when they sleep together on the ground of Sherwood Forest. Meanwhile, Geralt struggles with his father's illness, and Mr. Critch family succumb to death. Several nights passes, and Geralt finds himself wandering alone nights and eventually makes his way to Gudrun's house. He sneaks inside and upstairs and wakes Gudrun up in her bedroom. He spends the night there, asleep, while Gudrun watches him. After a violent argument with her father, Ursula decides to move in with Birkin. The two marry soon thereafter, and Geralt proposes a winter holiday in Europe for two couples. He talks at length with Ursula and Birkin about the trip, hoping it will be an occasion to develop the romance between him and Gudrun. Geralt and Gudrun leave first and stop for a night in London, where Gudrun meets Geralt's former mistress, Menity Darrington, at the Cafe Pompadour. Ursula and Birkin eventually join Geralt and Gudrun at Innsbruck, a picturesque Austrian retreat town. Things are lovely at first, but soon sour. The group lodges in a small hostel outside of Innsbruck, and friction develops between them, in part due to the German artist named Herr Lorke, who takes an interest in Gudrun. Ursula begins to loathe the cold and convinces Birkin to leave. Geralt and Gudrun remain, and Lorke continues to pursue Gudrun. One afternoon, she and Lorke are on a picnic that Geralt violently interrupts. Geralt knocks Lorke to the ground and strangles Gudrun nearly to death. He stomps away deeper into the mountain as the sun falls. He freezes to death, and his body is brought back to the hostel the next morning by a rescue team. Gudrun sends a telegram to Birkin and Ursula, who return immediately. Birkin is devastated, and the novel ends with him insisting to Ursula that he believes a lasting and intimate bond with Geralt was possible even while remaining married to Ursula. So, this is the story of The Woman in Love by D.H. Lawrence. So, D.H. Lawrence began writing his fifth novel. This is the fifth novel of D.H. Lawrence, Woman in Love, in 1913. But it was not completed until Lawrence was living in Cornwall 3 years later. It was first published in 1920 after several delays and editorial changes, some of which were due to the controversy surrounding the sexual subject matter of his earlier novel. Lawrence was deeply interested in the nature of desire and in the repressive, controlling aspect of human psychology and social institution. He was both influenced by and critical of Freudian psychoanalysis, and his novel investigates Freudian concept of unconscious repression, transference, and the psychosexual development of the human. Woman in Love also draws much thematic inspiration from the philosophy of Friedrich Nietzsche. and its critical perspective of modern European morality, the valorization of work over art, and the suppression of passionate and creative individual souls in the interest of collective productivity. So, this is the story. This is about the novel Woman in Love. Rainbow is also one of the novel written in 1915 by D.H. Lawrence. So I hope you will enjoy this. And Woman in Love, no doubt, D.H. Lawrence was a great writer, and it still dominates the minds and souls of the people. Thank you very much.